Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the News Behind the News with Ralph Kintab on Mix 94.7 FM. I hope that you've been having a good day so far, as well as a blessed week. Today on the program, we're crossing the border, as I have here with me the president of the Collectivite, Mr. Daniel Gibbs. Thank you for coming and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Ralph.
Okay, great.
It's a pleasure.
Definitely. It's a pleasure as well. Since starting this program, I've been able to speak to a couple persons from on the front side, some leaders. Definitely want to, allow for this platform to encourage more to come as well. Because I really believe that, and not just even because I believe it, but what it is that we're one island, and various things may impact each other, and we have relations that go back centuries, right?
I often say when one side sneeze, the other side catch the cold.
Indeed. And how we notice a couple of hiccups and sneezing on the way. And so basically, I would like to just really get an understanding of what's been happening. I think the whole island is definitely curious about that, as we've been affected in more than one way. But before we get into all of that, I'm definitely curious about you. While we know that your title is as a president, but I'm interested in knowing, if you could tell us a little bit more the backstory on Daniel Gibbs. What inspired you to get into politics, and we continue from there.
Okay. Well, first I was born on the Dutch side at St. Rose Hospital, and as I always say, room number 8 in Nurse Rose. And I was brought up on the French side, French parents. My dad is from here, my mom is from France. To get into the subject, immediately I have a PhD in law, and as profession, I'm a notary. And after being elected in 2001, which I wasn't predicted for politics, I was in my profession, and it's the Mayor Albert Fleming that came to look for me in order to bring me into politics and try to renew his team and have some fresh, like he said, fresh blood. And it was a couple of us that came in 2001. To compete with him for that election. And from then I have always been elected deputy mayor in 2001, 2007, 2008 vice president, because we changed constitution. We were no longer a commune. We became a collectivité. Collectivité means more autonomy. So we didn't have any more mayor with one competence. We have a president with various competencies, which is the competencies of region, department, competencies of the mairie, of course, and the commune, and competencies of state, which is giving to this side, our side of the island, a little bit more autonomy, because we have fiscality in our competencies. We have all the competencies in general, except the regalian competencies, which is security, which is health, which is foreign affairs, which is immigration, justice, and education. So all those fall in environment.
Education doesn't fall under you?
Education is state.
Okay.
Yeah. So those competences remain to state, but the collectivité can ask for modifications in certain circumstances, accept or not by the national government. So that brings us with more autonomy in terms of managing our side of the island, to be able to be, I would say, in balance with the Dutch side, which you have exactly a lot more competences, because you have education and your competences, health, etc. So it makes things a little bit complicated in terms of cooperation, because there's certain things the Dutch local government can decide by themselves, and we still have to decide with the state for those 5 or 6 regalian competences that remains to them.
And how is it like, I guess, in terms of the cooperation with the state? Do you find that there tends to be a lag in decisions and in execution?
Well, sometimes it's complicated. As I said, the position, the function depends a lot on the individual person. Before this new prefet, which is to have a comparison with the Dutch side, the prefet equal the governor. Because he represents the state. And it depends on the personality, actually, of the prefet. And since the end of 2020 December, we have a new prefect. The relations are much better because before it was a little bit hectic and complicated to work with the one that was there. But today we have a much better relationship. Everything is not yes, but there is a respect, mutual respect, and our competencies, and that's interesting to be able to work with.
Okay, so I guess then that's where the prefect comes in, as far as passing on. If I have it wrong, correct me. But as far as, let's say, passing on decisions from the state, like, so what is a, can you detail a bit more? What is a role?
For example, when we talked about the health issues, that's state competence strictly. So whatever convention, whatever cooperation, whatever coordination is made, it has to be done directly by state, the prefect, and the prime minister on this side. We facilitated the discussions, and we still have this relation with the prime minister and me, the president, on different views, on different actions. But when it comes in decision taking, it's the one that has the competencies that calls the shots at that time.
Gotcha.
So we have a level of discussion with our prefect on the French side, and then we coordinate for the cooperation with the Dutch side in terms of competencies of the prime minister and her ministers. Because actually, if I understood, the prime minister is chief of the council of ministers, but the ministers have also their autonomy and their function.
Correct.
So they take their decision on their behalf.
Yes.
Whereas when I take a decision on behalf of the island council. And because we have an executive council and we have a legislative council.
Correct.
Legislative, we vote laws, and executive, we execute. And it happened in our constitution. I have the presidency of those two, so I engage the collectivity in terms of those competencies.
Okay. And I'm just going to have you repeat what you said earlier, just for clarity, on what competencies you have, so what you have control over.
We have all competencies except the 5 regalian competencies, which is security, education, health, justice, environment, and I'm missing one, immigration. Those competencies remain to state. All the rest, fiscality, tourism, port affairs, urbanism,
and regular administration,
all those things. We kept competencies, but fiscality was one of the most important.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Because that was in our specificities, and that's why we were asking for a special status for Saint Martin, so that we can be able to accommodate according to the region, because everyone had their competencies in that sector. So it was complicated for us to justify our I would say specificities without having control of that part, because the incomes is what is the most important in terms of managing a territory. Because if you don't have any incomes, well, you don't have you don't have no function.
Yeah, and you know best how you spend your money as well.
Absolutely.
That's key. Because
absolutely,
if you compare again, then for example, we do have our own Ministry of Finance and stuff, but we do have a supervisory body that actually has quite a say in how we, as far as our budget is concerned, whether they actually do the final approving of it and so forth. But the allocation and basics, is up to the decision of the government. Yeah. So, as you mentioned Constitution, one of the things that come to mind is the famous Article 74. Again, other some terms that we hear often. And can you detail a bit, how this applies to government administration for you guys?
Well, that's exactly what I was saying earlier. Article 74 is our constitution in terms of competencies. It is. You see, Article 74 is the law that permits you to come out from the commune, I would say, entity, to a collectivité entity with a president, vice president, which is in the executive, and the legislative, which is the island council.
Okay. I never heard it referred to.
And then you have an organic law that explains to you how you function, what are your obligations.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. The thing is, I never heard it referred to as a constitution. That's always just Article 74. So I appreciate that clarification. So one of the things that come to mind, sir, is definitely, one, we are dealing with a pandemic.
Mhm.
But before the pandemic came
Mhm.
along, we had to deal with Irma.
Yes.
And you know, it definitely did quite some damage on the front side of the island. So my first question for you is, could you describe the recovery process since, and which areas are still most affected by the hurricane?
Okay. I don't know if it's the same for the French side, but the French side, we had 95% destruction, whether it's public or private. So I believe on the other side it was practically the same. I take it for a general situation on the island, because you cannot take policies or take decisions without seeing if it's not going to affect one side or the other one. And with what was done after Irma, it was all the taking part of reconstruction. What we tried to do is to get out of the reconstruction as quick as possible and come in the construction time. Of course, I came in March 2017 with a program, with a vision, according to the situation, which was not that sexy, but which we knew what we had and we knew what we had to tackle and modify. Nevertheless, Irma was a disaster, but also an opportunity to start back with a blank sheet and say, okay, these are the things that we couldn't do before that are necessary, maybe unpopular, but we have to do those reforms. We have to tackle those issues as quick as possible. And that's why I prefer see the glass half full than half empty. And that's what we've done. The first thing we've done in terms of recovery is a cleaning up campaign. And I engaged 5 million to be able to clean the entire French side. With all the human resources, all the companies, all the businesses that we had that could participate, practically 99% of the businesses or the companies that were that on the island that could have been able to process in that area worked at that time. It gave a good boost to the economy at that time, locally speaking. And 2-3 years after the time of the recovery, we tried to be in the aspect of construction now, planning on long term. We solved the immediate part. I decided to reopen all the roads, fix the sewage, fix the water, water and sewage piping, put down electricity underground, telecommunication.
What percentage do you guys have
high speed internet? I wanted all that underground, all that fixed from lowlands to Oyster Pond.
I have a question with that. To what percentage, if you know exactly, do you guys have underground current?
Today, normally between the end of this year and beginning of next year, everything is underground in terms of electricity. The reason for that is that
impressive.
when it's underground, you don't have the problem with the mast falling,
correct.
or the wires cut, and then during hurricane or during
So you have
bad weather,
yes. a faster recovery rate.
Exactly. So during the whole, if there's another hurricane during the time of the hurricane, you can keep having electricity. That was the case in Marigot. So I wanted the same thing for the whole island. So it was complicated and frustrating, I could admit, but if it was necessary. That's when I say I didn't hesitate to take unpopular decisions, because it was not a matter of being popular, it was a matter of being proactive on what is necessary for the territory. So you probably took the roads at that time and you were like with your car, oh, this road is in a terrible situation, but I had no other choice. At the same time, I wanted to fix my piping, whether it was for sewage or whether it's for water conducting, and that took another time. And you have to know that since the 60s, 3/4 of that piping was not fixed, because it was created in the 60s. So it was a necessity today to tackle that field, because we had problems all over.
That's pretty far back, though.
I know. So, but that's why it was necessary. I could have just do back roads and then say everything is clean and neat, but then you have the problems, because we kept having problems with water splashing all over, pipe busting, and sometimes there was not even any more pipes. It was so old, there was no pipe, so the water was running in the ground, and that was it. So we are getting to that. It's gonna take to 2022 to finalize all the restructuring of the piping. So that has been done. Practically done. Now I'm resurfacing the road. It's not a matter about elections coming, but it's the time now, because most of the work has been done underground. So I didn't want to fix the road, reopen again, fix, reopen. So I preferred to do the maximum in order to redo the resurfacage of the whole entire road. So that's what we're working on. Actually, as I'm talking to you, Grand Card is being finishing. Yes, and Sunny Ground. It has been delayed 3 times for different reasons. Part of Lowlands where there's some potholes, very dangerous for motorbikes, but also cars. So all that is going to be resurfaced.
Okay. So I'm curious about, infrastructure.
Yeah, I don't know if that was your question, but the continuation of that is when I said we wanted to stop the reconstruction and go to the construction. Yeah, remember I had the schools, 18 schools that were down, so I put all my concentration these 3 years after, for 3 years after Irma to refix the schools, knowing that the schools had already problems before. 18.
Also, of all 18?
Yes, all 18. At first, the government said you have to knock down all 18 because they cannot support anything anymore. So, and then when they checked, I said, yes, but where are we going to put the kids? And there was no way we were going to put them in tents. So they took the decision to reevaluate and say, okay, we're going to keep what can be fixed, but the fixing all, it takes time. And all the complication that that can happen. So that took us a while, but we practically finished. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's functioning much better than it was before. And I took a decision also to put in place 2 college. Well, it's not the same signification as on the dot side, but college buyers, I don't know what's high school. Yeah, 2 high school, one of 600 place in French Quarter, the actual high school, but with augmenting the capacity and renewing what was prefab and putting it in hard so that the schools can also be a shelter. So we try to do in 1 operation, 2 operation. In La Savane, we are doing a high school of 900 place, for 900 students. We are adding also a swimming pool complex with 2 swimming pools, 25 meters, one for the small kids, babies and kids, and one for competition and the elderlies. But that park will be able to also accommodate families who would come on weekends to be able to go and swim and spend some time in a nice area, which we didn't have before. So the opportunity was also to learn to a certain amount of people how to swim, because I realized on our islands, and it's not only Saint Martin, it's also the other islands.
Yeah, a lot of regional
we have the sea around us, and we have 50% of our population that can't swim. So in order to develop activities around sea, we need to have people who are not afraid to go in the sea.
Naturally.
So that's why I took the decision to put those 2 pools. And then we had our library that we are putting back in place. You see, it's in relation.
Yeah, no,
with,
that
with
was quite a big topic.
But it was issues, and because those who came here probably didn't talk about it, never explained that there was legal issues on the building. So we couldn't touch that building until those legal issues was cleared out.
Legal issues as far as ownership of it, or what?
Not
what exactly?
ownership, but the malfunctioning and the problematics that was occurred during the construction, because after hurricane we realized that a lot of things were broken because of the bad construction.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to ask. I mean,
So
the building was a beautiful building,
Yeah.
but to see damage to the extent that it was very sad to see.
Well, there were problem of responsibilities. So until the enquête, the I don't know how you call it, the enquête was done. We had to wait to be able to act on it, and that's been dealt with. So now we'll be able to start on. So all those projects are going to be put in place. The waterfront, the land part of the waterfront, where they have the actual lolos, will be also refurnished, repaired.
Were plans for that already complete? Or?
Yes, those projects I'm talking about is part of a pluri-annual investment plan.
Okay.
What I did for those 3-4 years is to find budget, because for 2 years after Hurricane Irma, I had no budget. I worked with donations and dotations, from state and from Europe.
That'll be grants?
Grants, yes.
Okay.
And it's only since now a year and a half, maybe 2 years, that I'm starting to get a little fiscality. The local fiscality is 100 million. That we get. The total budget is 180 to 200,000 million. So it was difficult to find back
a deficit to work with.
So it was difficult to work without those grants. And today that we put all in place the financing part, fetching funds at Europe, France, and we putting the half of all that. We got to manage to put out a plan of 3 years guaranteed, which means whoever come here in my place tomorrow, they have guaranteed for 3 years projects for 2021, 2022, and 2023.
And when is the expected start date?
It's already started because since the beginning of the year, we did the biddings to send out those operations. The two high schools, the swimming pools, the
area Marriott as well,
the waterfront land part. I would say refurnishing, and all those are things that has been the bid went out.
Okay.
We accommodated those bid with clauses of insertion, so that we assure that local employment would be priority. And next year we'll be working on the other, I would say, biddings of the plan of 3 years, which is the stadiums, a certain cultural center, a certain amount of edifice that will be done that year. That's 57 million will be invested next year. And the last year, which is 2024, it would be the balance of what was not spent on different projects that is already programmed. Why priority to those that I told you? Because for each thing you have fundings, and those fundings, if you don't spend them before a certain delay, you lose that money.
Yeah.
So the priority was we have to prioritize where we're going to lose the earliest, and that's why the programmation has been done intelligently, I would say, by the services, by prioritizing certain things that we would lose grants from. So all have an explanation, and it takes some time. And that's the reason why I prefer work with a planification of things, to be sure that when I come here and I talk to you, I'm not going to blow hot wind. When I give you an information on something, it's because something is going to be happening. It's not something that I dream of and that I would love to see happening. It is something that is going to be concrete. And that is important to understand, because people say, yeah, why the government didn't do this? They're taking so much time to do that. But there's so much red tapes, administratively speaking, and financially speaking. It's not easy. When you go and negotiate your own loan for your house, you see how much time it takes you just for your house. And you didn't do the car, you didn't do the schooling for your children, you didn't do a certain amount of things. So imagine an island of the dimension of St. Martin, even if it's not that big, all the financing you need to do for all the destruction that we have and what we have to repair. So it takes a while. We have 3 stadiums. At the time, St. Martin was a commune. When you take Guadeloupe, for example, because we were attached to Guadeloupe, we were functioning under Guadeloupe. Guadeloupe, you have certain communes, a lot of communes that don't have not even one stadium. They work with 5, 6, sometimes 7 communes, which one have a stadium, and all the others utilize that facility. We have 3 stadiums: French Quarter, Marriott, and Saint-Laurent. So I'm not saying that because of the others we don't have to have it. Fine, but the priority was to make certain things function, which is schools, which is driving on roads, which is having electricity, having the first necessity operational. We fixed one stadium, which was the one in French Quarter, and putting the artificial grass. We're working on the
stands will be back there as well.
Sorry,
the stands for the one in French Quarter.
Yes, everything is going to go back. What stopped us for French Quarter is that we already had the construction going on to put the stadium.
The stadium? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we work with CARICOM football, speaking about football. And CARICOM, is it CARICOM and football? Yeah. There's 2 types of competition. You have FIFA, and you have CARICOM.
Okay, I'm not that big on football,
so maybe I'm mistaken,
sure which
but
one exactly,
the category in which we
you're competing in?
We are competing in. They give us obligations in terms of construction. So we had to review the whole planning to accommodate, to be able to receive those type of competition. So that took us a little bit more time. But next year we're working on 2 other stadiums, and they will be fixed, I presume, between now and the end of 2022. So it's not that things has been forgotten, it's just that things are done diligently according to the finance and according to the situation of what we find.
So where finance is concerned, in considering that you also receive grants and so forth, is that money fully under your control, or
Yes.
What is reporting like? Do you have a committee that
No, we have full responsibility on that money.
Okay.
The European funding is managed by the state.
Okay.
It's a grant that is allocated for the collectivité, but it's managed by the state. So we have commissions with the state to justify why we're putting money on this line and not on that line.
Okay.
So the discussion is between state and collectivity, and we have been asking for a good while now that we manage the total, because sometimes it takes so much time.
Yeah.
To get things done when you have all those discussions and not being able to direct as we wish our development to be. That also is a consequence of all the time that is lost. But for, let's say, the good reason, because it's also about protecting and making sure that it is spent wisely.
Okay, understood. So you definitely answered my question in depth there. But the other part I'm curious about is, which were the areas that were most affected? Or what you just say was kind of equal throughout?
To be frank with you, every areas, because you see, we spoke a lot about real estate in terms of construction, but the social part, and we are seeing the result today. The social part was also damaged, because when that functioning, the first one I talked about is not going forward, you have unemployment. When you have an unemployment, you have people without salary, then you start getting social issues.
Yep.
And when you get those social issues, you get frustration. When you get frustration and you have no way of seeing how things can do, then you get the result of what we see actually happening. So I would not, in my managing, I would not say that is one more than the other one. For me, everything have an importance. And that's where you get the frustration, because there's a frustration in the population because not seeing things done, even though on the background a lot is being done. To be able to deliver 153 million of investment on 3 years, to be able to...
Do you find that's communicated enough that leads to that unrest?
You know, you have to be able to do your autocritic. And on the part of my government, I think maybe we misled in terms of our communication and delivering things. We were so emphasizing and putting things in place and doing and not just saying. Because a lot like to say, but a lot don't do. We wanted to do so much that sometimes maybe we were misleading in terms of communication. And, you know, and this maybe is one of my fault, because I don't like to come to a radio. I don't like to go and communicate on things that are wishes, and I'm not sure I can accomplish. It's in the vision, okay, where I can talk about them, but then I will keep coming 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and then what? When I come to give you an information, it is accurate. You can guarantee that it's going to happen. It's only if a nuclear bomb fall here that it won't happen. So what was important for me and what I concentrate on is trying to make things being. And I was also president of the ultra-peripheral regions, which is Mayotte, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Saint Martin, La Réunion, French Guiana, and 3 Spain and Portugal islands, which is the Azores, which is the Canaries, and the third one. There's a third island also.
From Spain?
That depend on Portugal, close to Africa. Nevertheless, I was president of the association, the president of the association of those overseas territory. Why? Because we fight together towards Europe to get fundings for our territories. And for 1 year, practically and a half, I've been also busy working on those issues. So, Beverly, you're going to say, yes, but then what about Saint Martin? Yeah, but Saint Martin benefit, most of the development that I've been able to do was with European fundings, plus all the grants that I get on a regular basis from Europe. And
so you say it places a heavy emphasis on cooperation?
Yes, we get financing up to 85% on a regular basis, okay, on a program of 7 years. And I got an extra envelope of 46 million finance 100%, which means without having to pay any part of the investment for certain things. That was after Irma. But we had to defend the fact that Europe wanted to reduce the help and the financing. They would give you grant, but they would tell you can finance only 50. It will finance only 50, a percentage of or rate of 50% of your investment. when it was 85. So that year when I was president, we had to fight to maintain at least at 85% of co-financing. And there was two other topics also. They give you a delay to spend. It was the year plus 3 years. They wanted to reduce it to the year plus 1 year. So we got to hold it for the 3 years plus 1, which was 4. So this doesn't seem much for Mr. Everybody, but this means a lot to us that are managing those fundings that would have lost practically 25% of core financing and lost the possibility probably of not even being able to spend them because we'll have too much short time to spend it. So it's an institutional work to be done in the background that is not measured as effort of what this collectivity is doing. You get my point? So all that put together, I'm quite satisfied of the work that has been done and what is going to be programmed for the next years also, because all the hard working is going to produce the results now.
Okay. So on the topic of infrastructure, there is two more things that stand out. The port on the French side, as well as the airport. Are there any plans to expand those?
Yes. The port is in the phase, in the third phase. The studies have been finished.
Third phase of
expanding.
Okay.
Yeah, to be able to receive the bigger boats with bigger draft. The biggest problem was the dredging, and we needed to be sure, environmentally speaking. You see, we have a reinforcement of environmental rules and regulations that we have to follow.
Yeah.
So, for example, when we decided to do a bridge, like for example on the Dutch side to go to the airport, that would have taken us 2 years and a half, practically 3 years to build, because with all the laws of environment that we have to follow.
Run through the whole.
Yeah, we can't put a nail without checking everything. So it's the same thing for dredging. We need to know what are going to be the consequences environmentally speaking on the beaches if we dredge too much here. So we have to justify a lot of things. That process has been finished, and we're passing on the bidding mode for the extension of the third phase of the Galli's Bay port.
Okay. So it's on the way.
It's on the way. Yes,
okay.
It's on the way. And then the airport is under concession, and we had a problem with the extension of the runway, which the extension was not giving after the results that was brought to us was not possible in terms of taking off. Because when the rules and regulation, European and French rules, when you have a runway close to habitation, if you have certain habitation too close, the rules of taking off of those airlines are not the same that what it was before. So today the restrictions are even more. So which means that the extension that was intended was not justifying economically the return on investment. So the company preferred investing in the infrastructure to be able to develop a lot more other things that they didn't envision, because the idea was to lengthen the runway. That will take part. It's not closed. It's still a discussion with the authorities.
So basically like under review, right?
Yes, it's still under discussion with the authorities, national authorities, to be able to find exonerations as far as that's concerned. But meantime, they augment the freight department, the hangars for the planes, the mechanical part, all those things have been dealt.
So the subsidiary stuff.
Yes. It's not like they're not doing anything, and they're going to be resurfing also the runway because it was quite damaged without being able to see it, but it was damaged.
So
after
is it given that it's under concession?
A 20 million investment.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, given that it's under concession, is that being run out of France? Most
no,
likely?
it's been
company.
It's been worked since 2000. I would say 2012. Yeah, 2011, 2012, by a company that sold back to another company, and it's actually Eddie's, which is running it.
Okay. All right. So on that note, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone. You're tuned into the news behind the news with Ralph Kintav on Mix 94.7 FM. And this afternoon, I'm joined with Mr. Daniel Gibbs. We last left off on our discussion on the rebuilding phase, of the French side where Hurricane Irma is concerned. Now, the main ticket that we have to overcome is COVID. I'm pretty sure, COVID may have also diverted some of the plans that you had planned.
Yeah.
But I guess from there, one of the things that come to mind, especially as you highlight that the plans for rebuilding key infrastructure throughout the island they've been approved, let's say, and construction will now take place. What can you say what do you say is needed to take St. Martin further economically? People often talk about the need for jobs, more local businesses and so forth from, what I've observed. But what can be done to help take the island further economically?
Further. Okay, before we go there, I think just now I gave a bad term in terms of justification for when we talk about communication. When you ask me if I think the communication was the right communication, and I told you that maybe we done things not the right way in terms of communication, and I used misleading. That's not what I meant to say.
Okay.
We didn't mislead people in our communication. What I meant to say is that probably our way of communicating, and I took the blame on myself, because I said that I like to communicate when I got something to announce, something that is going to be concrete. I don't like to blow hot wind. I like to give the correct and give the justification of what I'm bringing on the table. And I would say that maybe our communication was not enough. Maybe should be done differently, and that's why I say we have to do our autocritic in order to be able to ameliorate that communication. But I prefer to have a communication problem than to have a doing problem, because honestly speaking, what we're doing was necessary. It took time, but it was necessary to have a strong foundation.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. But
voila.
It's still, you gotta still manage it, because communication can affect what you do.
Absolutely.
In that sense.
Then not communicating enough can mislead.
Yeah, I follow your point. Yeah, I mean, the language. So it's cool.
So on COVID,
the topic of
with the COVID situation, what are the things? Well, whether it was Irma or whether it was the COVID, one was health and the other one was climate problematic. In both cases, we try to bring out as much help as we can to the businesses. We try to provide different strategy. As a matter of fact, we reviewed our tourism strategy according to the situation after Irma, and we modified it also after or during the COVID, I would say, situation. So allocation was grant or allocation. I don't know how you say it. Were giving to the businesses to be able to help them redo their shops, their businesses, if they were refurnishing inside.
Without having to pay back?
Without having to pay back. In fact, what we did is that we give grants that had a limit of 10,000 euro on each of their investment. We would give a maximum of 10,000 euro. We would finance 50% of their investment. So that's one of those, I would say, help that we had. We had also Boost, we had also Care that we put in place to accompany the different businesses, the different associations to be able to touch the allocation nationally and locally. Every time national would give some help, we would give the compensation of that help also. So according to our financial situation, we did as much as we could have, and we keep doing. We reform our strategy also, touristly speaking. You see now most things will be done on webinars, and even though I hate that, because I believe in being there, I believe in
being present.
Being present. Because look, if we had to do this interview by webinar, it would be a little complicated for me, because I like to have the interaction with the person I'm speaking to, which gives it more, I would say, justification. It gives it more.
I give it more body. More
exactly.
Life. Yeah.
Exactly. So all that strategy was to be dealt with, and we cannot live today like we lived yesterday in terms of business wise, and that's why cooperation is important. Ralph, I think that with our sister side, the Dutch side, we need to have a strategy in terms of all what we use as common. The road network, the water system, the electricity system,
Internet.
I think the internet, all what we're putting in place should be benefiting to the Dutch side. We have a program that is called Interreg. and I might be losing money because the programs that we put in place in cooperation with the Dutch side, we cannot get and finalize a certain amount of documentation to be able to proceed. And it's something like 10 millions that we are losing in that program.
Can you detail that a bit more? What exactly?
I don't want to go in the polemic. That's not the point. It's just to show that there are solutions to be able to push a little more some cooperation in terms of financial means, because we are European, because that side is CTO, and because those fundings comes because two different entities work together with different rules and regulations. We have those we are grant a certain amount of money to be able to work in terms of cooperation, but we all have to put in the bucket our personal part, and sometimes the red tapes are in our different administrations. So there are little obstacles, but there's the space to work on certain issues such as water. I think whether it's water or electricity that is cheaper on the Dutch side and that produces better, and if it's the water on the Dutch side, the electricity on the French side is better. And then if we can use the benefit of what works good on one side, do it on the other side, I think that would be a good term of cooperation, first of all, and secondly, economically, it would help a little bit more the island in terms of its population. And you know what I decided for that? A couple of years ago, before even being president, is a united Congress. Why a united Congress? Because I said it this morning again on the radio, I am against the MOU. You sign an MOU, it engages those who sign, which is the president and the prime minister. But when you deliberate in a full body, which you would call a united Congress, with the executive of the Dutch side, the executive of the French government, then we will have a deliberation that will engage us until the next deliberation, because once you change government, or government falls, your MOU falls with it. When you engage like the United Congress of Europe, like the United Congress of the United States, when you engage a united Congress with those two executive bodies, it is more difficult to undo what you did. And the problem that we have is stability. We need to have a stability to be able to follow the decisions that we take in terms of cooperation. And that is very important. And I think the United Congress, French and Dutch, would be an answer. Will not be the solution of everything, but will be a big answer to how we provide stability in terms of the action that we will be providing for this island. Because this is one island, like you said it, one island, one people, one destiny. And if we include the first subject of discussion, which is electricity, water, road network, internet.
Yeah, don't forget internet.
Internet, I could maybe put it first. But what I should put first is tourism. We can have our strategy of tourism on each side, but when we go out there, we fight for common strategy, okay? And then after, it declines from tourism to all what I just said, internet, roads, water, electricity, because those are the tools that are common to both sides to provide a prosper economy in terms of tourism, but also we have to divert our economy and not stick only in tourism, but go also in the new technology, which is...
I was going to ask you what options do you see viable for...
Yes, NTIC, which is new technologies that is out, and that goes with the internet, but also agriculture, fisheries, that exist on a small level, but I mean, an island needs to survive sometime by its own.
You have to be self-sustainable
exactly.
to a degree.
So you need to develop also that branch, things that we trying to do. It's difficult, but we have to vary it our in terms of economy, our services, and our I would say a different vision of development. And that is not going to be done in an overnight, but that is the strategy that I'm seeing for this island. Unfortunately, Irma did not give me the opportunity to do all what I wanted at the time that I wanted. But again, as I say, you have to see the glass half full instead of seeing it half empty. A lot of other things were done, and now it's going to be time to also emphasize on those issues. So that's the vision that I have in terms of the question that you asked me. How do I see things develop tomorrow with what we're facing? Health crisis, climate crisis. I think that more than yesterday, we need to work together. And in order to work together, we have to be organized. To be organized, we need this United Congress. We have been, since 1648, the Europe, before Europe, And we are
Yes, yeah,
Europe,
yeah, EU, yeah.
of course, and we are Europe with more complication than Europe, because we are Europe not with the two entities who are the same. One is out of the European system, and the next one is in the European system. So we cannot have a
Okay,
border.
you're speaking politically, yeah.
Yes, we cannot have a border that is closed, because Europe is close to the other countries that are not European. We are not close. We are open. That's our specificity. So we show the example and the leading in that area. So let us show that we are mature enough as politicians to be able to bring a full institutional body that will regroup the executive of the outside, the executive of the French side in one, and let's deliberate and take decision in terms of cooperation that will be sealed by a deliberation that will hold whatever other government will be coming there. The two states, which is the governor and the prefect, would be just an institution of, I would say, of participation that will be there just to, as I forget how you call the term of that, observer, as an observer. When we don't, and we are not capable of taking decision in terms of areas that is not our competition, it is we to do our homework with our government and bring those decisions upon that United Congress after discussing it with our government.
Yeah, so you share something pretty interesting there, because we often hear about collaboration that is being done between both sides.
Mhm.
Because I was going to ask you, what steps have been taken at least, to make this realization?
Mhm.
Is it something that is shared? But also looking into, also considering what you said of being Europe before Europe.
Mhm.
It's just so indeed, as far
Since
as the
1648.
political system is concerned, we've shared the same island, free movement and stuff. But I think where you tend to get the challenge, though, is our Caribbean identity,
Mhm.
because we have our own way of life, our own belief system.
Absolutely.
But administratively, it's quote unquote
Absolutely.
foreign.
Absolutely.
So indeed, what steps have been taken to make cooperation, which we know we desperately need,
Yes.
to be honest, a reality?
Ralph, I'm not going to run around the bush. It's a political decision. As far as I'm concerned, most politicians, prime ministers, certain of our ministers that I spoke with are in favor of, now it's time to take action. It's time to go to the practical part and sign something. The building, I would say, concept is for the future. For the time being, every year we can do a rotation of presidency of that United Congress. 1 year it will be the Dutch side, 1 year the French side, and vice versa. So that's not even the problematic. The real problematic today is to have the political willing. I am leading the willing for the French side in terms of that United Congress for years. And I believe that most of the politicians from the French side agree on that vision. I believe most of them also on the Dutch side, but it's always, I would say, a gap between the willingness and the doingness. And I wish we can get to the doingness, because I really have that at heart, and I really think that will bring concrete answers to, first, stability in our way of managing for corporation, as you were saying, and delivering what we said we are going to do, that we really do it for the people.
Okay. So considering some of the events we've seen recently and in months, particularly as far as the strikes are concerned, the protests are concerned, what update can you provide us, on how far you've gone along with discussions with the Unity labor organization, as well as the
unions?
Yeah, the unions and the collective.
Yeah, but that's two different subjects.
Okay, so let's start with the unions first.
The unions was an internal problem of the functioning of the collectivité itself with the agents, because the union defend the agents. That situation was passed, and we solved a certain amount of problems. As I say, I don't see no interest in blocking a functioning of a collectivité where I deal with matters. It's around a table. We can agree to disagree. That's not a problem, and we continue discussing until we find a solution. But that happens around a table. It is also a right in the French system to be able to demonstrate, but block is something different. Stop the institution from functioning creates delays, and that's why sometimes you see that things are not happening because it was blocked for a certain period of time. And I got that regularly in my mandate. Nevertheless, we got to a certain understanding of things, and we got to find solutions with the union. And with the unions, I would say, because in 2019, we also had the other union in which we had a blockage for 4 months, and the other union was this year. So no, in both cases, we found a solution to be able to go forward.
So the workers who were demonstrating or go slow and so forth, they are back to work. Like that situation
yes, that situation
okay.
is if that's
settled.
a question that it is settled. Then after you had the collective, according to the society now problematics, which was at the beginning the pass, the sanitary pass, and also the obligation of vaccination.
Yeah,
so
for the
that
hospital
created,
workers
that created a problem, and that mostly was a state problem, but it implicated also after, when you have a blockage, then you have all the different problematics that comes in, and some concerning the collectivity and some concerning the state. But in general, everything concerns the collectivity at the end of the day. So
sorry, go ahead.
No, today we as far as I'm speaking to you, I think there's some understanding with everyone. So I see that circulation started back in Sandy Ground. Actually, I'm happy about it because I told you at the beginning that I'm resurfacing the road. So I have 700 meters of resurfacing road in Sandy Ground to do that will start currently this week. And there's a certain amount of things that we need to do in there also. So discussion has been open also with a certain amount of association, a certain amount of collective, to be able to see how we can provide on a short term a certain amount of protection in terms of jobs on the island with all the projects that we are bringing out. So we pointed out all the work that was done, all the different, I would say, level that is brought in terms of jobs creation, in terms of trainings, in terms of, I would say, institution that we put in place to be able to uplift the qualification of those persons that we want to train. So those discussions have been handled with. I think we got to a decent understanding, and we're now going to go forward on those issues, because there is a social climate that is very ticklish and that we need to be very careful of. It's not just to say what we're doing for the youth, what we're doing for what do we have to do for unemployment, because everybody is due to employment, whatever age you have, because everyone is due.
What's the unemployment rate? If
we are high, we are around 40-45%. But you see, remember, we are still recovering from Irma. I mean, I know people don't like to hear this, but the consequences of what we are suffering today is what was in the past.
What was it pre-Irma?
And has been aggravated with Irma. That brought to our face the problematics that were emerging at the door of 2017. But nevertheless, we have to bring answers, and that's why we're trying to do our best to be able to improve. And in a lot of, I would say, improvement in terms of training. We even have trainings where you're paid during your training. So it's not big amount, but it's to give a push, a help while you're training, that you get a little substitute, a little encouragement while you're doing that. So there's various type of trainings where we just did a survey of the areas in which we consider that it's appropriate to go in trainings in those sectors. We divided the work with the state because state has a part of financing for trainings and the collectivity also. So we try not to do the same trainings, to be able to open a panel of training session in different areas. And with what I told you just now also, the campus connected, all campus connected, to be able to open also by webinar, by instruction via internet, schooling and university, to have all type of university. I know some of the candidates, at least one candidate is talking about bringing a university on our side. I say it's too much spending for the result that you would have. First of all, which type of university you're going to bring? If you bring one, which one? Science? Letters? Economics? What kind? Medical? I mean, do we have a survey giving us the intention? So we're going to make only doctors, we're going to make only translators, we're going to make, I prefer go on virtual. I prefer go on having a panel of different, I would say, proposition to give to that public, and that will bring a choice, and that will bring a possibility for each and everyone to choose the channel in which he wants to put himself into. And I prefer finance, that type of investment, than to go to a university. Maybe one day it will be the occasion of doing I would say not tourism, hotelier school, because most of our institutions here is hotels, and we need hospitality, and we need that sector. But in terms of university and in terms of education, I think it's better to go with a virtual, because you have more teachers that you can have via that channel. You can have more openings, I would say propositions in terms of I was going to say formation.
You mean and courses.
And courses, exactly.
But
I was looking
probably,
for the word courses.
Or maybe hybrid, because definitely a good idea. But like during the lockdown, one of the biggest reality and challenges is the, for example, whether it's internet, maybe persons having stable electricity. Well, you guys are better with that is concerned. But so I guess maybe that may be a challenge.
But
with
you see, Ralph,
concern.
You see what I was telling to you at the beginning?
Yes.
After Irma, what I did, I try to. I'm fixing all that. That's why I'm putting everything on the ground to make sure that it's going to be functioning. So we have some mishaps actually, because we are still working on it for the connection. So sometimes your internet is not working, but when everything is hooked up, all those problems are over. And when I talk about campus connected, that's what I'm talking about too.
So that would be like, so certain. Would it be national university or universities from France that operate here? Like how would that set up?
It's going to be at the beginning. I mean, I'm hoping to everything. I'm seeing the picture as big as possible. It's going to be probably at the beginning national, because we work with in a French national system. But why not also opening it to international? Why not having international school? Hospitality is not only national, it's also international. You have Geneva, who one of the most famous hospitality schools. So why not in terms of medical? Why not in terms of environmental issues? Why not in terms of economical issues? Everybody got their competencies. Everybody got their, not competencies. Everybody got their, I would say, specificities in terms of we are, how you say this? We are better in this type of
I follow you.
Education than another type. So why not use what's the best? And to do that, it's difficult to bring people and to open a university and that type, but it's
so I guess
easier.
The main thing is saying is if we are going to, on the French side, we're going to explore the option of having a university.
Yes.
You prefer that it's tailored towards the needs of what the country.
The term is tailor according to the needs of the territory. Absolutely. And you have more facilities of having big schools, known schools with professors that can do give the education or give the knowledge through internet via the screen, than being digital. Here where it's being here where it's going to cost you more money, more spending, more functioning. Whatever.
Yeah, because I'm curious if have there ever been any university in France that maybe was ever interested in setting up a smaller school or branch here? Was there ever any proposal like that made?
Yes, we were going in that direction. And where we continue working on, I told you, is the hospitality field, because that is something that we're working with the private sector. But we had also certain schools that wanted to come and integrate the system. So instead of doing that, they prefer come and select a certain amount of kids that we're going to study abroad and take them in their schooling. So that we can, at that time, we can give grant to those, and scholarship, exactly, to those students that are going to specialize in certain things. For example, in sports, which is sometimes costly, and you want to be in the best teams, in the best cities. So we give grant and we follow those. Actually, we have 4 or 5 that I know of that we follow on a constant base, on a yearly base. But there's much more that we follow on a regular basis, and that's important. But we need to bring it to another level today, and that's why in terms of sport we're going to do, and that's the concept for the stadium of Sandy Ground. It's going to be sport excellency in sport, which means that we want to upgrade our level of sport, upgrade our teaching of sport, and bring it to excellency, so that we can have also detection being made in St. Martin, whether it's in football, whether it's in volleyball, whether it's in athleticism, etc., etc.
We'll take it to another level, basically.
Yes.
Okay. One question I have for you, and I just have like two more questions for you. One of them being pre-Irma, what was the unemployment rate, if you recall?
Pre-Irma, I think we were based close to 20%.
Okay, so it's
double,
more than double, basically.
Yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks for that. So yeah, as far as because you briefly spoke on the past sanitarian stuff,
mm-hmm.
which seems to have been one of the main contentions in the public. Is there any considerations being made by the state to adapt the rule of making it mandatory for the workers, so the hospital workers, and those who have to subscribe to it? And what is the stance of that?
Well, we made it our purpose to bring solutions that we're giving after discussion with the unions, stating that we ask other workers that are not in contact with the patients, that they don't have the obligation of vaccination, but they suggest that they would be tested every 3 days by the antigenic testing. That's one of the propositions that we made to the local institution here in St. Martin representing state, the ARS. No answer. We question also the national government, but like many other territories such as Guadeloupe and Martinique, we still stayed without answer. So I do hope that they will bring a solution to that, because that's what caused most of the demonstration that you see in Guadeloupe, Martinique, but also in St. Martin. So we've done some proposition, honest proposition, and we'll see what's coming out of that. But as you were right to say, that it's strictly state competencies as far as health is concerned, even though we asked also to be able to modify according to our autonomy and our possibility of modifying the laws nationally speaking, but that needs to have a positive answer from the French government. It's not that easy as it was written.
Gotcha. So what can you say is being done to handle the situation that we saw in Sandy Ground? Also, one of the things I noticed on social media, there are persons who express dissatisfaction that the prefect was there, but you weren't there. So could you also clarify that?
But the prefect is in charge of security. They had a security problem. They have a blockage. When in terms of blockage, it is the state that is in action. Mm-hmm. And what the people was asking is to open up the area for them to be able to live, for them to be able to drive out and in. So it is effectively strictly a competence of state to be able to manage that situation. What the Collectivite done on its side is that we are open to discussion. And those situations, you don't know really who to discuss with, because you don't know which one is leading what and who's leading what. Because when you ask a certain amount of people and they say, yes, it's this one, no, it's that one. So you needed to have a steady body in those situations with who you can discuss with, which we've done, because we spoke with the collective and we had a certain amount of propositions to be given for the situation, and that happened last Thursday evening, which was a fruitful, I would say, meeting that is continuing again this week. So what I would say is that we're always open to discussion with any situation that is on the burning, and we've shown it, whether we receive by ourselves or whether we receive with the state on common competencies that we could have with state, and we receive those different collective.
Okay.
So we always stayed open to discussion and negotiation. Okay.
And then I guess most likely then, where a situation like that is concerned,
yes,
since it falls under the prefect, he would then just keep you updated as to...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's the same thing in Guadeloupe, Martinique, and in France. That's when you had the Gilets jaunes. That's a responsibility of state.
Okay. And how positive, or what is your outlook, for you in going into a new year in seeing a more quelling of the of the situations we've seen. And I know that elections is also around the corner, so that may be another factor. But what is your thoughts on seeing progress that the unrest that we've seen? The population can sort of be rest assured that it won't be intensified again.
Well, I think that a lot of what happened is manipulated by the outside factors, and because, as you said, probably there's some elections coming up, so that shows signs also of manipulations in a certain way. But I think people are not fooled, and people see the reality of things. What we have to continue doing on our side is to concentrate on how to finish this mandate by bringing answers to problematics that we really have on this island, being able to put financial dispositions for developing projects that will bring wealth, which is employment, which is construction, to be able to employ part of the population. You have the public, I would say, developments, but you also have the private sector. Every time we depend on public, but the public cannot do all. There's also the private sector. So we bring and we try to put in place the necessity to give that impulse and to give that opportunity to get a job. So we do it in terms of training, we do it in terms of investment that we put in place to provide jobs. Whatever is in our hands that can be done has been worked on, and it doesn't happen on overnight. It's things that take years, as I try to explain to you in your personal life. And when you take a loan to build, it takes you some time, and that's on a personal level. So imagine on an island level with 35,000 inhabitants, 95% of the destructions and things to be able to put in place, finance to be able to found, you don't have any incomes, you're granted a certain dotation from state, certain dotations from Europe, those things, you have to go and fight for them. And it takes some time. So all that was be done in those 2, 3, 4 years. And today we are seeing the fruits of all that work to be able to deliver a certain amount of a realization that's going to happen between now and the next year to come.
Okay. So then finally, there's the last two questions I have for you. One,
there's a lot of last two questions, but I have another meeting that is waiting on me, which is called La Mission Locale,
okay, so
which is going to give answers also for the situation that we have today, providing I would say trainings and jobs for a part of our population.
Okay.
And I'm putting in place that body today, this afternoon.
Okay, so now I'll have you back on the program.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, as much as you invite me, I will answer present.
Okay.
It's a first time, but it's not a last time.
Okay, gotcha. No problem.
Okay.
But I do appreciate you coming on the show. Definitely shared a lot of information. Of course, there's more information to be discussed, but I appreciate it and thank you.
Thank you to you, Ralph.
Okay, great. So to all our viewers and listeners, that was the news behind the news with President Daniel Gibbs. And do take care and see you again tomorrow. Okay.
Sorry about that, but I